I'm not sure what exactly that means, but we'll get into it. He is an author of a whole whack of books through a very different style of publisher, if that makes sense. But Ed, can you tell me about your books or EA? Should I say Ed or EA? Which do you prefer?
Ed's fine. No problem there.
Tell me about your books and what you do.
Right now, I was on disability, and I decided it's time to get the government out of my finances in life. So I decided I like to write, so no more excuses. And so my writing goes anywhere from horror. I have a children's series. Let's see, where's my children's series? I do sci-fi, mystery. I just did a crime book called Real Skin, but that's my children's series. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And so
that's a hell of a good cover. Look at that.
Yeah, I designed my own covers, so that's like number 2.
Yep.
And so I do that, but I've been writing professionally probably for about 2 years now.
Okay. And where does the ideas come from? Where do you get your inspiration?
Anywhere from dreams, because I'm one of these people that actually dream and remember. And then just from newscasts. One time, my book Flesh Eaters came to me because I was working alone in a metal fabrication shop at night. And I kept catching my reflecting off this, that, and the other. And kind of spooked me out thinking somebody's in the studio there with us. And so I came up with Flesh Eaters there. They just kind of randomly pop out of nowhere.
It's wonderful when I talk to creative because you never know where some of these ideas come from. I've heard stories they come to me in dreams, they come to me through whatever, right? Or I was visited by my grandparents is even one that I've heard, and I'm like, what? But it happens to people, right? It's what people choose to believe. As an author, what are your goals? What are your dreams? What do you want to do with this? Where do you want to go?
My main thing is I'm not really looking for fame, but I'm looking for financial stability.
That makes sense.
So that's why I'm mainly doing this. But the revelation came to me a while back that all of these ideas and stories that are in my head, if I don't write them down, they'll never be told the way I plan to tell them. And if something happens to me, they're gone.
Yep.
And at that point, I realized that that this has to be done. I mean, there's a purpose in this. And I just want to make sure they get out there. So I leave some sort of footprint.
That makes sense. I think that what you're building is capital, right? Because you have that book forever. And yeah, you might only make $1 or $2 a book, but it's there forever. It's always making you $1 or $2 eventually, right? So every book that a person writes is just another investment in their future, which sounds a little bit crazy, but it is. When you look at the process of writing, most authors follow the Joseph Campbell storytelling guideline. If you know what that is, it's where the hero follows a select path. Is that how your books work out? Do you start with an end in mind? Do you have specific things that you hit in every book that you write?
Yeah, usually most of these stories I've had in my head for years.
Yep.
So by the time I start writing, I usually have an idea of how I want to start. And I usually have a good idea how I want it to end. And so at that point, I just let it free flow. I try not to put down, well, I want this to happen, that to happen, this to happen. I just know I have point A and point B. And I want at that point, I just let the characters speak for themselves. And if they have a freak flag fly, then the freak flag's going to fly.
You talk about letting the characters speak for themselves. I've spoken to a few authors in the last few weeks about how the characters become real to the author. They might not actually be real to anybody else in the same sense, but one of the authors I talked to was, and you kind of described it there, is they basically say that the character won't let them do certain things after a while. The character says, no, that's not who I am. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I'll have an idea to go a certain way, and I realize it's not that character. They wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I do have to throw things like that back. But otherwise, I have a cousin. She's a famous author. And it's because of her I got jealous because she beat me to the punch. And yeah, so I asked her, what's the best thing to do? Because I was afraid, like most authors, what if I write this and then reject it? What if I put this in? And her best advice to me, and I give this to all wannabe authors, write it as you hear it, as you see it, and send it in. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you, or the editor will say, we need to edit this or that. But if you don't put it in there, it might be the one thing that changes the book, that causes everybody to become addicted to it and tell their friends. But if you don't put it in there because you're too scared to, then at that point, you just lost a great novel.
Yep. One of the things, so I'm a big wrestling fan, and I don't know if you know wrestling at all, but
Tank Patton, Scott Casey, Andre the Giant, I'm old school.
So one of the things the head guy, Vince McMahon, says is grab the brass ring, if that makes sense. And yes, it's just like what you're talking about with the book. If you don't reach for that brass ring, you're never going to grab it. So you might as well just go out, do your stuff, and get through it. And if people like it, good. And if they don't, too bad. You did it anyway. Just like life, right? You can't worry about what everybody else thinks.
Well, like this one. This is my first one. This is Year of the Cicada. It's so intense, it comes with a graphic warning. So this is the first one. She told me that I took the advice and I just let it fly. And I expect this to be probably a very controversial book down the road, because it has quite a few characters that you don't see usually written about in books. Mm-hmm. So it has taboo subject matter and everything in it. I just made sure in that warning to let people know that some of these characters, I do not agree with what they're doing. Yep. But just please remember, it's just a story, people. Yeah. So you got to be careful on learning.
Well, you do have to be careful, but that's kind of a throwback to what society is these days. You do have to be careful about everything. But do you think that stifles people's creativity?
It is. I mean, look at the comedy scene. You could laugh at anything in the past. Now, they're up there scared to death to even say one thing because they don't know if their career is going to end with one word. We've lost our humor. We've lost our sense of, okay, that's cool for the time and the subject matter and the time and place. Comedy stage, let it happen. But it's not worth destroying somebody's career because they just happen to offend you when you might be out there doing the same thing and offending others.
That makes sense.
We really need to take a chill pill. We really do.
America specifically, I'm in Canada, so it's not quite as bad up here. We basically say what we want, but America specifically seems very sue happy, if that makes sense. Everybody's getting sued for everything, and then they sue back because you're being sued and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Let people live. Sorry for swearing. I apologize.
No, I got to be careful. That F word kind of flies sometimes.
So the Green Man, what's Green Man about? Is it just your nickname, or do you have a specific reason for calling yourself the Green Man?
Well, since my last name's Green, I just kept hearing it over and over and over in my head to go by the Green Man. Go by the Green Man. And so my children's books are literally filled with the Green Man. He puts quotes in here, and I've got pictures of the Green Man. I try and put a different picture in each one. And so he's really been incorporated into who I am as an author. So I plan to stick with that for quite a while. I think it's kind of catchy.
So, the reason I asked that in reality is because the Green Man's a huge mythological creature, right? And I was just wondering if it tied back to some of the mythology about the Green Man. So,
I love the Green Man. I love the spirit of him. I'm a person that's connected to the woods. I've spent 20 years in landscaping, so me and plants and trees I'm really connected to the earth. And so it's just like, I couldn't deny it when it spoke to me because I felt like, you're going to do a big injustice here.
That makes sense. That's awesome. At the beginning of the interview, I didn't ask the icebreaker question that I ask everybody. I asked the same question for 1 week straight every week. So the icebreaker question this week was, if you could only eat one sandwich for the rest of your life, what sandwich would it be?
Ooh, I'm from the South. You're making that hard. I'd have to say a Reuben.
I've got that like 6 times this week.
Have you?
Yeah, it's crazy. Reubens and Philly cheesesteaks. People are just crazy for them, and it's
Yes.
usually the Americans. When I talk to people from Canada, it's usually just something like a hero sandwich or something like that. So yeah, that's really cool. Sorry about the weirdness.
Our Domino's here in the States actually makes a Philly cheesesteak pizza, and it's the bomb.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't think the cheese on the cheesesteak would because it's like syrup almost on a Philly cheesesteak, right? So you wouldn't think
the cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
they
horrible
use that fake liquid cheese, but on the Domino's one they don't. It's
okay,
real,
so it's good cheese. That's
yeah,
good. That would be pretty
it's
gross.
good cheese.
That'd be pretty gross to put that stuff on a pizza. Where can people find your books to buy?
My publisher is breakingrulespublishing.com, and that's where we get our biggest royalty there because right now it's like 40% of his 60 on my side until I sell so many books. And then we go even. Otherwise, you can find me on Amazon. That's the big one. And it's available in Canada, so Amazon carries it up there.
Yep.
And yeah, if you happen to be on Goodreads or any of those others, all my links and my social media, if you get on them, will actually send you right to where you can always find them.
Okay. So once again, that's Breaking Rules Publishing or Amazon. And let's be honest, anybody who watches this, I want you to go to breakingrulespublishing.com. They're a small independent publisher that publishes real people's books, not huge authors or anything like that, although I'm sure that's what they're hoping for eventually. But if you write a book, they help you actually publish it and get it out to the world, which the big publishers, let's face it, they've had a monopoly on everything for years and years and years, and they can go, well, F themselves. Sorry, I apologize.
No. So many authors want traditional publishing.
Yes.
And they do not realize that's like winning the golden ticket. You are not going to just be given an entrance into that door. And so Breaking Rules is an indie company. And I know a lot of people say Vanity Press. We get that a lot. But they do not charge to publish your manuscripts.
Yep.
And we've even got a setup now over in Italy to help them over in Europe so they're not paying the shipping prices. We've set up a publishing thing over there to help save them money.
Yeah.
So it's a great company, and yes, they will let you expand your writing abilities, push the limits. That's what they're all about. And Christopher Clausen Rule runs it, and he's a great guy. He will bend over backwards, and he's usually a lot of companies, well, talk to my secretary, talk to this. No, he will actually talk to you one-on-one and take the time to get to know you. So yes, great company.
People talk about the vanity publishing and all that stuff. I've written 2 books, and one was on stress management, and the other one was on hypnosis. And if I didn't publish them through Vanity and get them out in the world, they never would have seen the light of day, and it wouldn't have helped the people that I'm a helper person. I do textbook style stuff, right? So there's no difference between any author, whether you're a huge author or a small-time author. Realistically, if you write a book, it deserves to get out there most of the time.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of, it's like you said, you're not going to win the lottery by trying to get it in anywhere in a lot of places. And you have to follow rules that don't make sense a lot of times, right? And sometimes your royalty from these big, huge things are only 5 to 10% or less.
Yes.
So it's not worth it. Is there anything else that I apologize for going off on a side thing?
We're here to talk.
And that's for everybody listening. Just go publish your damn book. It's not that hard. With what you do, what's your plan? Are you doing any sequels? Are you doing just specific genres? Does that make sense?
I don't write specific genres.
Okay.
I write my stories, and then once they're done, then I find the genre it fits in. Because I've known people, well, I got a great story, but it's not the genre I write, and they throw it away.
Yep.
And you're doing yourself a great injustice by doing that. Don't do that. Yeah. My Bed Bugs will be a 6-book series. I've got 3 out. I'm working on my 4th one right now. Father May I was the 2nd book I ever wrote, and it will be a 2-parter, even though it doesn't seem like it by the way it ends.
Okay.
My latest one, Real Skin, is the crime drama, and it's a kind of horror and mystery and thriller. And I guess I don't want to give it away too much by the way it ends, but we'll just say there could be a 2nd and 3rd book out of that one.
That makes sense. How long is it taking you to write each book, approximately, for first draft? I'm not talking full edited piece, but how long does it take?
Takes me, if I've got it down in my head like I wanted, about 2 months.
That's not bad.
No.
That's not bad. Many authors spend years and years and years, and they never get published, right? Yes. I think the biggest thing that most people should take from this interview is take action. Instead of sitting on your laurels and letting yourself waste away, take action and just get your stuff out there if you want to be an author.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my first book, Year of the Cicada, I came up with just the title in 2004. I had no idea what the book would be about. I just knew I loved the title. And I did not start writing that book until 2012 to 2013. And then I did not finish it until the end of 2018. So it took me that many years, but a lot of it was because I was having to fight just for the right to share a computer at that time with my roommates. So a lot of things were out of my hands to write the book. But then the way I look at it, it wasn't meant to be finished until it was meant to be finished.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it could take years. And in this world, it can get really easy to get depressed because, you know, you want to finish it or you get it finished, but it's not selling or things like that. And my favorite author that I grew up with was King. And so the more I look into Stephen King, I just recently realized he wrote for 10 years without even selling nothing. 10 years. And so I write, you know, and I saw my first book there after I finally sent it in within a year. And I was like, I can't get depressed because that man was old school. You know, and back then you had to print it, mail it, 6 months to hope to receive it. And so, yeah, it was just so time consuming back then. We got it easy as authors.
Well, technically, you can use Amazon, and I could publish anything I want today if I really wanted to through CreateSpace, right? Or whatever CreateSpace is turned into. With your journey, so you spoke about being on disability, and we don't have to talk about that, but I think that you're a really good example because you've talked about how you're putting these out there every 2-3 months. It's starting to go out more and more. When you're in that process, I think that it's a very therapeutic process to get something created and out into the world. You know what I mean? And you might be disabled for the rest of your life. I have no idea your situation, but a lot of people get stuck in that hole where I'm no good. I have depression, blah, 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 blah. And by getting that one thing out into the world and then moving on to the next and onto the next and onto the next, sometimes that's a way out for people. And I think it's really a therapeutic thing.
My disability is I'm dealing with arthritis. I'm basically ate up with it. And so I can't, you know, do long stances and I get wore out real easily. And I went through the depression. And the whole time I'm hearing in my head, write your book is screaming in my head and I'm fighting it. I finished writing it, I felt so much better. And now I realize when I don't write, I do start getting depressed. Because I'm not writing. And it's like I have to now. It's just something that must be done. And it helps with the fact that it helps with not getting depressed like I was, because I never had it until I'm 51. And so I just started dealing with depression the last few years. And I think the only thing that really helps is I've had many friends that have suffered through it. And so I grew up recognizing the signs, what to look for, and to catch those things. And one thing I learned when I was younger, I was probably about 13 or 14, and I was watching a movie, and it was about somebody fighting depression. And the best advice they were given was stop looking for the darkness, look for the light.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of sitting there, oh, this is bad, that's bad, this is bad, I realized, no, I need to start looking at the light. This is good, this is good, this is good. And it helped. It really brought me out of it. And I think that's the hardest thing for people that fight it. They're so lost in the darkness, they can't see the light. And so we all have to kind of step back and remember that. Look for it. It'll help.
What's that one thing that makes me happy? You know,
Mm-hmm.
We are at 21 minutes, and we're all done the interview. Is there anything else you want to add before we go off the air? I got one last question, but do you want to plug where can people find your stuff one more time?
BreakingRulesPublishing.com. Amazon, which is available, I think I'm available in something like 12 countries. If they're in Europe, you can get it through Blackwell's online. It's a real popular one.
Okay.
But yeah, and even if they want to reach out to me on any of my social media sites, then they're more than welcome.
Okay. Once again, everybody, this is Ed Green, the Green Man, author of a lot of books. I'm not going to say them all. And Ed, the last question I always end with is, other than this interview, what have you done for yourself today to make yourself happy?
I just got some new shirts. So I'm wearing my first one today that I just opened the package this morning.
That's fantastic, Ed. Thank you very much. We're going to go off air and say bye. This is how we say bye. I'll get you to wave your hand and say bye.